Welcome back, everybody. There was a lot of interesting news this past week, but there was one article in particular that caught my eye that I wanted to talk to you about. And it was this Wall Street Journal article about phony billionaires on Facebook are scamming Americans out of their life savings. And I will just say that I appreciate the effort put into this image article because, I don't know, it just made me laugh. The hacker with the little cardboard cutout face of Bill Ackman, it just was hilarious to me. But this article brought up a lot of reasons why financial education and just learning about investing is so critical for everyday people like you and me, because it's easier than ever for scammers to leverage the internet, social media, and now AI to try to separate us from our hard-earned money. And so if we go into the article and see what's going on, it starts with Bill Ackman is fighting a losing battle against Bill Ackman. And that's because imposters were posing as a billionaire hedge fund manager on Facebook to keep luring hapless investors into stock market scams. And if we go down here, we can see that one ad promised annual returns of 125%, another a 25% return in a week, and told victims to hold these three stocks and you'll be a millionaire. And we've all seen these kind of ads on Facebook before, probably, and they gave a good example here of one. And part of the challenge with this is that it's so easy nowadays to just go and copy someone's profile picture, take pictures of their life that are out there on the internet, and basically create an account and run a sponsored ad on it. Like, there's not much barrier to entry there, and that's one of the challenges that we'll talk about here in a little bit. And then if we go down even more, we see that it says the ads lure victims into joining WhatsApp groups to get stock tips from supposed associates of the big name investors. Now, obviously, it's not just Facebook where this type of thing is happening. I mean, if you look at the YouTube comments, there's always a bunch of stuff in there where it's people trying to get others into WhatsApp or Telegram or other channels where they can try to take advantage of them. And obviously, if you look at Twitter, they're all over Twitter as well. They're basically anywhere on the internet where you can reach people and try to get to them so that you can make money or scam them out of money. These things are going to be there, and we've all seen them. And the crazy part is you don't have to be a billionaire to have people try to use your likeness to scam people. Like I talked about in my newsletter a couple of weeks ago that actually I started having scammers that are impersonating me in my own YouTube video comments. So you can see this example here where it says mattdarren.helpline. And I'm like, oh, hey, thanks for commenting on my video. And now reach out to me on WhatsApp. So I'm just going to tell you right now, I will never ask you to reach out to me on WhatsApp or Telegram or some random phone number. Like I will never do that. And I'll never ask you for money outside of a normal kind of transaction that you would do like on the Build Invest Live website or on Patreon or something normal where you're actually buying a product or service. I would never ask you for money directly. But if we go back to the article, we could see that some of the comments were like, these were sophisticated and well organized, but it's still embarrassing to be taken by any scam. And that really does speak to why these scams work in the first place. Anytime that people see an opportunity to make money, it's obviously going to attract them. That's a tale that's as old as the end of time, right? But when it comes to something like investing, it's a place where people naturally feel like they don't have enough knowledge or they don't have the confidence to be able to do it themselves. And so when they see an opportunity from someone that they quote unquote know or that they've seen before, who they know is successful, then it automatically becomes this thing that attracts them to say, okay, well, if this person can help me, then maybe I can see a little bit of the success that they've seen. Even though, just from a natural common sense perspective, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. All right, but let's actually go into the details of the scam, because once I read through it, I understand a little bit better why so many people actually lost their money, because the scammers weren't actually asking for money up front. What they did was a little bit more unique than that. So it says the fake ads range in sophistication, but use the same formula and sometimes similar language, asking investors to join a WhatsApp group to get in contact with a supposed member of their team. And some ads feature deepfake videos, such as one that falsely depicts former Fidelity Magellan Fund manager Peter Lynch on CNBC's Squawk Box show saying, "Join us and you'll get the opportunity to double your income and achieve financial freedom more easily." So when I first saw this, I was like, no, they got to Peter Lynch. But this is a great example of, Peter Lynch is probably never going to get on TV and say, oh, join me and I'll double your income, right? Just common sense will tell you that sounds a little bit too good to be true. But the fact that they're using deepfake videos just shows that this is going to be a problem that's going to get harder over time, where, Before it was the internet, and then it was the internet and social media, and now it's the internet, social media, and AI technologies, or whatever they're using to make deep fakes, to where it's almost impossible to know when you're looking at something if it's real or not. So us having the knowledge, or at least enough knowledge to have the confidence to say, okay, this sounds too good to be true and I don't need this to be successful, that's going to be a big thing for everybody. And then they show another example where it's Kathy Wood, right? And it's, look, I think here's what's going to happen to date. Here's the 5 stocks that I asked traders to share on WhatsApp last week. And just the idea that you're going to get, stock tips from Kathy Wood and her team on WhatsApp, again, sounds too good to be true. But if you're new to this, or you don't really understand, or maybe you're in, an age group or a knowledge group where you're really vulnerable to be taken advantage of, then those things might seem reasonable. And they actually talked about that a little here, where they said that they actually chose Facebook because the members are generally older than those on Instagram or TikTok, and thus wealthier and less sophisticated. What's more, he added, Facebook has lookalike audience targeting for people who have clicked on ads like these. So they're literally able to use Facebook's ad data to be able to say, look, people that have clicked on these, sponsored ads in the past, I want to target that group again. So it's pretty crazy how they're using kind of all this combination of things to be able to scam people. So in terms of how the scam works, one part that I thought was really interesting is that one person said that he joined the group last fall because he was disillusioned by conventional banks and stock market advisors who say that we might be able to get you 5% or 10% on your money if the market doesn't tank. And this, I think, is a really key point, right? Like in any given year, if you can get 10%, that's looked at as pretty good over the long term, right? But when people hear 5% or 10%, and then they see these ads that are like 125%, or you can double your money in whatever asset, right? Then it makes that 5 or 10% seem bad or seem not good enough. And part of that is, being uneducated about, long-term investing and what really kind of makes sense. But it's also this idea like, okay, I want to make money and I want to make it quickly. And so let me take on this additional risk because it'll be worth the reward. Not knowing that that risk is really a scam that has very low probability of being successful. And then we can see that some of the scammers in the group encourage victims to liquidate their 401ks, mortgage their homes, borrow from friends in hopes of doubling their money on the group's stock picks. I mean, again, anybody that's telling you to take out a mortgage on your house, to liquidate your 401k, to double your money, at the end of the day, it's about what are the incentives for the people who are telling you this. And, anybody that's asking you to do that, it's probably not a good idea. I would go on a limb and say it's never a good idea. But then if we keep reading, we can see why it worked on some people. And they say, I'm amazed at how sophisticated the operators were. Khan's Nashville clients made profits on 4 of the 5 U.S. stock picks in October and November, then had a 15% gain in 4 days on a Hong Kong stock in early December. But as they ramped up their size of their bets, they were urged to buy 2 more Hong Kong penny stocks near the end of December, Dream East Group and Superstrong Holdings, which Superstrong Holdings, again, red flag, which quickly fell by 90% and 98% respectively on the same day. They lost most of their savings, had to file early for Social Security, and are considering going back to work. And that's obviously a terrible story, but part of why I thought it was interesting is it's a slightly different type of scam. It's not one of those ones where it's like, hey, join my group and pay me some money and I'll give you stock picks. What they're literally doing is, you can join my group for free. I'm doing this for free. You don't have to pay me any money. Just put money into these stocks. And it looks like what they did is they basically, gained their confidence by giving them some winners or ones that did pretty well. First on the US stock market and then on the Hong Kong stock market, to where they're like, hey, we're doing well. This is actually working, which basically was a setup to get them into the 2 penny stocks, which I'm assuming that whoever they're working with have a controlling interest of those stocks or of those shares. And as people bought it up and raised up the price, they basically dumped on them and took the money. And now a few of those investors have kind of banded together on social media. They have a Reddit group. There's about 29 members, and they have $3.2 million in combined losses. And that's just the folks in that group. So who knows, how many people actually lost money or how much. But either way, that sucks. Part of the challenge here is that the things that are making this possible are only getting easier and easier. And what I mean by that is the barrier to entry to be able to create an account, create a profile, create an ad, use someone's picture or likeness is so much easier now than it was even 10 years ago and definitely 20 years ago, right? And the ability to trust what your eyes are seeing is becoming less and less every single day. And when you combine that with the fact that as people's money situation gets worse, or, people talk about like the income gap or the wealth gap, or as those things continue to happen, it means that the people who are struggling financially are going to be more and more likely to be open to trying these things because they get more desperate, or they're in a situation where they're looking at it like a lottery ticket. And how can I just flip this, little bit of money that I have to completely change my life, right? And the more desperate people get, the more likely they are to fall for these type of scams. Now, ultimately, you all out there are probably not the target audience that they're trying to reach when it comes to these scams, but we all have family members, right, who are at different levels of education and knowledge of both technology and investing, and it makes them susceptible to these type of things. So what can we actually do about this? So number one, basic blocking and tackling of just common sense, right? If something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. If someone is saying, I want to give you this 125% return opportunity completely free, we should probably question why they would want to do that, right? Like, what is the incentive for someone to do that? Now, it might be like, hey, I'm, billionaire Bill Ackman, and I'm doing it out of the goodness of my heart. Again, we got to scrutinize those things a little bit more. And for someone like me, it's relatively easy because I'm just super cynical by nature. But, in general, that's just one thing we can do to protect ourselves. And then number two, just this mindset of the bigger the amount of return or the quicker the speed of the return likely means the more amount of risk that you're taking on. And this is just basic kind of market forces stuff, right? If you come to me and say, can you tell me how to double my money in 10 years? Well, there are a lot of ways to do that, and ways that are, I would consider, relatively safe under normal market conditions. But if you tell me, okay, I need to double my money in a month, well, your options are much limited and they're way more risky and less likely to actually come true. And that's just a general approach that we need to take to anything we do in life, but especially anything related to investing. If someone comes to you and says, I can double your money in a week, or I can get you 125% return, or I can get you a 25% return in a week, chances are anything that they're going to tell you to do is extremely risky or not real. And then number three, which is kind of related to the stuff in number two, is set realistic expectations and try to build a habit of consistency as opposed to just hitting a home run. And I think that's part of the challenge, right? People look at this as more of a lottery ticket as opposed to long-term investing. And those really are two different things. It doesn't mean that you can't take some swings at a big home run, but understanding what is real long-term investing and what is just kind of hoping for a lottery win are things that we have to understand the difference of as investors. And, anyone that's asking you to mortgage your house for something that has the chance of a lottery ticket is never going to be a good bet, right? Now, obviously what they're telling you is that it's a sure thing and all those type, but again, go back to rule number one, sounds too good to be true. It probably is. Lastly, and probably the most important one, is we have to be able to educate ourselves enough so that we feel confident to have a real conversation with somebody about investing. And this is really the main point that I wanted to make in this video, right? There's a reason why in my videos I don't just say, hey, you should buy these stocks, right? Or I sold this stock, so you should sell it. I never say stuff like that. And actually, I go the opposite way, to where I may sell a stock and then I'll tell you, well, if you're an investor that's looking for Y, then you actually might want to keep holding, but I'm looking for X and that's why I'm selling, right? Like, I give you both views. I give you the opposing view as opposed to just what I'm doing, because the important part isn't finding people to tell you what to do. The important part is to learn enough and learn how to think about these things so that any issue that comes up, any situation that comes up, you're able to use critical thinking skills to know what's right for you. If someone just gives you all the answers all the time, then you never really learn. And when the next question comes up, you're going to be dependent on them to tell you what the answer is for that one. And ultimately, it's really understanding, how do I analyze these things for myself? How do I make sure they align with my own personal goals and the things that I'm trying to accomplish? And that's really the best way to combat these scams, because that knowledge of ourself and knowledge in what we're doing gives us the confidence to know that we don't need any of these things in the first place. So what do you guys think about all these scams? Are they super obvious to you, or do you think they're going to continue being a big problem going forward? Now, if you're just getting started with investing and you want to see a simple one ETF investment plan that works for most people, click on this video right here. Hope you guys have a great day out there. Financial independence is true freedom, so keep building and stacking wins, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.